Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Sri Vyasa, the author. Nastapeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhakti bhavati naistaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with unlimited songs is established as an irrevocable fact.
Great. So, let's thank you very much, dear devotees, for joining us today. And wanted to seek your good wishes and your blessings so that we can continue with the overview of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the topmost Purana, and it's the spotless Purana, the Amala Purana. And we are very fortunate to be able to look at this Purana, and so fortunate to have the Bhaktivedanta purports, which explain so nicely this Bhagavatam. It's so difficult to understand, but Srila Prabhupada, his translations are so incredible. He spent so much time on doing that, and his purports explain the translation so well. So we really have to be very grateful to Srila Prabhupada for making this accessible. Something that's inaccessible, he's made it accessible. So, and this is the real treasure that we have. Okay, so let's go through the lessons. Induleka Mataji? We can't hear you clearly, Mataji.
You can't hear me.
No, it's very low.
Now, is it okay?
Just about.
Okay. So we'll go to chapter 7.
Because there's not too many chapters, you can just go through all of them.
Okay. Okay. If you can hear me, so yeah, I will go through all of them.
Yeah.
Chapter 1. Always respect the spiritual master and ask questions in a submissive way. Chapter 2. Lord Shri Krishna is absolute truth and the ultimate goal of life. Chapter 3. Krishna is the original Godhead who has unlimited expansions. And chapter 4. Reading Bhagavatam will give more joy to the heart than any other scriptures. Chapter 5. Spiritual literatures lead us to bhakti and bring changes to our heart. Chapter 6. By chanting the holy names of the Lord, we can cross over this material world. Chapter 7. The Vedic literature can help us develop loving service toward the Lord. Chapter 8. We should be fully dependent upon the Lord even in time of calamity, like Kunti Maharani. And chapter 9. We should aspire to constantly remember the Lord, especially at time of death. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for compiling this list.
With your help, right?
No, we are helping each other, and it's really nice. This is a fantastic forum to do that as well. Very brief overview. Sages gathered, Nimisharamya, and then Sutta Goswami was there, and they asked questions of him. He was very qualified, the son of Mahaja Sutta as well. And he's also heard the Bhagavatam from Sukadev Goswami. So he answers the questions with authority. He gives a list of all the 22 incarnations, not all the incarnations, and establishes Krishna as the source of all these avatars. And then We heard about Narad Muni guiding Vyasadeva to glorify Krishna, hence the Bhagavatam in the format we're seeing. And he also gives account of his life. The Lord saves Parikshit Maharaj. We'll probably look at that again today a little bit. Queen Kunti's wonderful prayers, especially those who are materially exhausted can approach the Lord, and the severing of ties of attachment. Those prayers are really phenomenal prayers. And then Bhishma's instructions to Yudhishthira and his subsequent departure in the presence of Krishna, which was absolutely amazing. And this is not much different. The current conversation is between Shonak Rishi and Sutta Goswami. So this is from the 10th chapter of the first canto, texts 11 and 12. So we can recite the Sanskrit. Satsangam mukta dushango hatam no shahate buddha kitaya manam yasho yasya shakad akarnya roshanam tasmin yastatiya patha shaheram viraham ratham darshanam sparsa samlapa sayana shana bhojanaha.
The intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association can never avoid hearing the glories of the Lord, even though they have heard them only once. How then could the Pandavas tolerate his separation? For they had been intimately associated with his person, seeing him face to face, touching him, conversing with him, and sleeping, sitting, and dining with him.
So we will come across this verse as we're going through the overview. Not the verse, but we will come across the separation felt by the Pandavas. But one point in here, which is very important for devotees, the intelligent who have understood the Supreme Lord in association with pure devotees and have become freed from bad materialistic association. This is quite an important point. It's inevitable that we will have association with those people who have no interest in God whatsoever. Perhaps are even atheistic or inimical against God. And those circumstances can be sometimes a little challenging, difficult to avoid. But the point is that we should not necessarily take their points of view. We shouldn't take their association, but somehow give them our association. It's not that we're going to force our beliefs and thoughts onto anybody, but we're certainly not going to be misled by anybody. That's a very, very important point to understand. An association can be very, very important. It says in the Bhagavatam earlier, or later, Vidur says it. Even a moment's association with a pure devotee can purify one's existence. But on the other hand, even a moment's association with somebody who's very materialistic can destroy one's life. And the example is from the Mahabharata. Karna, he essentially was a righteous person. He was the son of the sun god, after all, even though he didn't know it. But he had one moment's association with Duryodhana, and it completely destroyed him. Destroyed his ethics, destroyed his righteousness, destroyed his life, to the extent that even when Krishna was trying to convince him to take the side of righteousness, even when his own mother, Kunti, was trying to advise him, he wouldn't listen. So we can see bad association can completely destroy one's bhakti, one's righteousness. So I have to be very careful with association. Anyway, I thought I'd just make that one point. So let's move into chapter 10. Title is Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. And the first 6 verses discusses Yudhishthira's rule in Hastinapur. After re-establishing Yudhishthira in Hastinapur, Krishna becomes pleased. During Yudhishthira's reign, the clouds showered water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities in profuse. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. Because the king had no enemies, the people were not disturbed in any way. This reminds me of when we went to Vrajadam in Hungary. There was one Gomata who didn't bear any calf, but she would give milk. She would give milk profusely every single day. And it was because of the wonderfully happy atmosphere that they have created in New Brajadam. That was extraordinary. Krishna's departure. Oh, if anybody would like to comment or ask a question at any time, don't feel shy. Feel free to, speak out, or even send a chat if you don't want to speak out. You could send a question through the chat or message through the chat. Afterwards, when the Lord asked permission to depart, so this is from verses 7 to 31, the king gave it, and the Lord offered his respects to Yudhishthir by bowing down at his feet. This is really quite extraordinary. When the Lord comes to this world, he behaves in such a humble way. He is the Supreme Lord. Everybody is bowing to him. But in this situation, Yudhishthir was older, Yudhishthir was a king, and Krishna was following the etiquette, even though he didn't need to. And the king embraced him. When the Lord departed from Hastinapur, different types of drums and instruments sounded together to show him honor. All the residents were feeling heartbroken by the thought of the imminent separation from Krishna. We can't even imagine what that's like. Krishna's journey to Dwarka. Out of profound affection for Lord Krishna, the Pandavas accompanied him a considerable distance to see him off. They were overwhelmed with the thought of future separation. The Lord, however, persuaded them to return home, and he proceeded towards Dwarka with his dear companions. After crossing several provinces, he gradually reached Dwarka at last. A little bit reminds me of when Guru Maharaj used to go on his travels to Mauritius and South Africa. And we used to be at the airport, and then we would see him go past the, what are those things called? The security, customs. And we're just waiting there. We'll just be standing there, and he'll be waving right till the last moment. It'll be such a, it was really sad. It was good to see him go and preach in new lands, but it was used to be sad times when he used to go like that.
When Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah. Every time when he would just disappear to custom, so we were not allowed to go further, right? I would just like weep inside, saying that maybe it's the last time I'm seeing Guru Maharaj, being to his bad health, that was in my mind, and I would just cry. I just pray to Krishna, please don't let it be the last time we are seeing him off. Coming was very fun, but going
was fantastic.
Much, yeah.
It was fantastic. Coming, we used to have a festival, wasn't it? So this is Naniben. Naniben, would you like to ask?
Yes, I was just reading the chapters this morning.
Oh,
and yes, I read, yes, fortunately. Then I thought that with Dwarka, all the opulences and living with all these thousands of Ranis, but Dwarka is not that remembered as much as Vrindavan, where Krishna passed his childhood rather. So I was just wondering about that, just a thought.
Not just Krishna though.
Yeah, because Vrindavan has so much sweet pastimes, whereas Dwarka doesn't have so many. Because even if you look at the 10th chapter, that's 40, 10th canto, sorry, that's like 40 chapters on Vrindavan before you even get to Mathura, and then a little bit on Dwarka.
That's right.
So,
how do you know that?
Listen to your class this morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so,
right.
the sweetest pastimes were in Vrindavan. That's
Yes.
But
Yes.
not just even the Lord himself. Whenever he was in Dwarka, he would actually remember Vrindavan. He would remember Yashoda Mai and Nanda Maharaj and the gopis and the gopas and the gomatas. In the middle of the night, he'll be crying out to Surabhi. And Satyabhama would ask, who's Surabhi? Oh, she's the Gomata.
Yeah.
You're remembering Gomata in the middle of the night and you're sleeping next to me, Krishna. So even Krishna was very, very is very attached to Vrindavan. Absolutely. Yes, Nalivan, you're right.
Yeah.
Thank you for reading, by the way. And if anybody, if you hadn't read, I was going to ask you to sit in the back of the class and face the other direction.
No, I read the texts, yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Some of the purports are very, very long, so
yeah,
not much of a time to read them.
Yeah, we'll get to those purports at some time, definitely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Prabhuji.
So we recite this verse together. It's the 9th verse of the 11th canto, 11th chapter. Yambuja sapasha sarabhubhavam kurun madhyam vatashrude hidayashaya tatrapta goti patibhashano bhavat ramim vimakshno evanastava.
O lotus-eyed Lord, whenever you go away to Mathura and Vrindavan or Hastinapur to meet your friends and relatives, every moment of your absence seems like millions of years. O infallible one, at that time our eyes become useless, as if bereft of the sun.
Okay, so 11th chapter is entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwarka. Lord Krishna entrance into Dwarka. Upon reaching near Dwarka, the Lord sounded his conch, announcing his arrival and pacifying the dejection of the inhabitants. The citizens of Dwarka, having heard the conch, began to run towards the Lord in order to see him. They felt very fortunate that the Lord had returned again to Dwarka and come under his sweet protection. So everybody was missing him. In Dwarka, they're missing him until he comes back. In Hastinapur, they're missing him as soon as he leaves. This is the Lord. He reciprocates with his devotees. Dwarka is filled with opulence of all the seasons. There's nothing short. Everything is in Dwarka at the same time. In every residential house, there are many auspicious things for the worship of the Lord. The residents hastened towards the Lord on chariots, with brahmanas offering flowers and respect to the Lord. Krishna approached them and offered honor and respect to each and every one who came to welcome him. These 12, 13 chapters are really amazing chapters to read, because we read about the residents of Dwarka, how they are really looking forward to seeing the Lord again, having been bereft of his association for quite some time. As Krishna passed through the roads, all the ladies went up to the roofs of the palaces just to look at the Lord, considering it to be a great festival. After entering his father's home, he offered his obeisances unto his mother. His mothers, actually, should be mothers. It's headed by Devaki, by placing his head at their feet. So the Lord himself is showing the etiquette, how one should greet one's mother. This is lost, of course. In the olden days, even maybe a few years ago, the children used to pay their obeisances to their parents. But now it's the other way around, of course. The parents have to pay their obeisances to the children. Rianch, are you there? No, okay, never mind. Then the Lord entered his 16,108 palaces and greeted his wives. So of course, it's not that one Lord enters so many palaces. The Lord expands himself into 16,108 forms, all as powerful as each other. And he enters into every single palace and he greets his queens. The queen's beautiful smiles could not agitate the senses of the Lord. He would look like a hand-packed husband, but actually he was completely controlled, of course, because he is a Supreme Lord. Krishna's activities of marriage and living with his wife, living with his wives, is never mundane. Krishna appears to living entities to enjoy the eternal relationship with him. So his relationship with anybody is not mundane. It's not material. It's not governed by the material laws of nature. It's not governed by lust, anger, or greed. It is simply spiritual. Thank you, Pitamba, for joining. Very good. And Krishna appears. Why? Because he wants us to enjoy our eternal relationship with him. So this is one of the reasons why Krishna comes again and again in different forms, different incarnations, different mellows, and different types of relationships with his devotees. So that's chapter 11. Anybody any questions or comments you can certainly make. Chapter 12, text number 8.
Angustamatram amalam spurhat puratam molinam apivyadarsanam shyamam tadidvasanam achyutyam. He, the Lord, was only thumb high, but he was all transcendental. He had a very beautiful blackish infallible body, and he wore a dress of lightning yellow and helmet of blazing gold. Thus he was seen by the child.
Does anybody know who this, what pastime this is referring to? Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Very good. Okay, so this chapter is entitled The Birth of Emperor Parikshit. Yudhishthira's devotional rule. So first 7 verses discuss about Yudhishthira's rule. He ruled generously during his reign, exactly like his father, Pandu. Pandu was a great king, righteous king. The opulence of the king was so enchanting that the heavenly denizens aspired for it. Even those who lived in heaven, they would look at Yudhishthira's rule and think, oh, wish we had that. However, the king was always absorbed in the service of the Lord. Nothing else would satisfy him. So Yudhishthira was detached. He was detached. He was a king, he was a father, he was a husband. He was all of these things. But first and foremost, he was servant of Krishna. He was always absorbed in that service mood. Nothing else would satisfy him. And this is actually something that we should aspire for. No matter what situation we are, we have our swadharma, our immediate duties towards our family, our jobs, our relatives, our friends, whatever it is. But there is an eternal relationship, and that is with the Supreme Lord. And that's really where our absorption needs to be in time. And we can somehow, over time, we can get into that mood and that the way of thinking. That actually my purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord. In the meantime, there's all this other swadharma. I will serve my family, my country, my employers or whatever it is, society, my pets. But underlying everything is the service to the Supreme Lord. So it's the trick is to get into that mood. And Bhagavatam very much will get us into that mood, because Bhagavatam just simply glorifies and serves the Supreme Lord. The next 9 verses are in relation to Parikshit Maharaj. When the child Parikshit was in the womb of his mother and suffering the burning heat of the Brahmastra thrown by Ashwatthama, he observed the Supreme Lord coming to protect him. So he saw the Lord. Right? The Lord had 4 hands, golden earrings, his eyes blood red with fury, and his club was constantly encircling him like a shooting star. That's how the Lord was protecting the boy from this Brahmastra, this nuclear weapon that had been there to destroy him. So the boy saw this incredible vision.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
just a question. When the second Brahmastra was thrown by Ashwatthama, was it after he was derobed by shaving off his head, or must have been before, isn't it?
No,
After.
it must have been after.
No, it was after.
Yeah.
But then I thought he didn't have any power after he was sort of taken off his jewel, of his head, and
He didn't have any power. You good point. But I think he could still invoke this Brahmastra because that's done through mantra. So,
okay.
yeah. But we'll double check on that. It is a good
No,
point.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's after, but I was just thinking the loss of all the strength and the power once he was beheaded, etc. So
Yeah, I was wondering the same.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll double check that fact.
sure,
But,
okay. Hare Krishna, thank you.
That's right, Ashwatthama.
Yeah.
Because that was his final fling, wasn't it? His final thing that he could have done, and he did it to kill the lineage of the Pandavas. So it would have been after. Yeah, it is after. It is after.
It is after, and I think that he still has the power because he's still living, right? He still have some powers. It's not like all his powers were taken, but only the jewel on his forehead was taken, and he was saved and all. But his power was still there, I think.
I think
Otherwise, he would.
I think maybe.
Otherwise, he would not be able to invoke the Brahmastra. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. But the jewel contained a great deal of power, which was taken away. But he obviously still had the power to invoke the Brahmastra.
The mantras.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Then suddenly the Lord disappeared from the vision of the baby. The heir apparent of Pandu, Parikshit, was born when all the good signs of the zodiac gradually evolved. The king was very satisfied with the birth of Parikshit and had the purificatory process of birth performed. Astrological predictions were made about the child, that he will be well known in the world as one who is protected by the Supreme Lord, and that this child will become a first-class devotee endowed with all good qualities. Oh, there's more. Okay. So the next 5 texts discuss how Yudhishthira was satisfied because the astrologers predicted he will be as charitable as Sibi, Lord Shiva, and Rantidev. He will be mentally balanced like Lord Brahma and yourself, Yudhishthira. He will be forbearing, forgiving, tolerant. Yeah, same things. Tolerant, like the earth, and Bali Maharaj. He'll be truthful, like Lord Ramachandra, and he'll give shelter to all others, like Krishna and Lord Narayan. So that actually pleased Yudhishthira Maharaj very much. But above all, Parikshit will be a great devotee of the Lord. He will be wise and thus be able to control everyone. Parikshit is famous for his birth, activities, and his death. Throughout his life, he was protected by Krishna, and especially at death, he will go directly back to Godhead. Parikshit means examiner, because he would examine all living beings in his search after that personality he saw before his birth. He would be always thinking about that form of the Lord. So whoever he met, he would examine that person. Are you Supreme Lord? At that time, King Yudhishthira planned to perform a horse sacrifice to get rid of the sins incurred from fighting with kinsmen. Lord Krishna being invited to this ceremony, so he came back, saw to it that it was performed by qualified Brahmins. After that ceremony, the Lord remained for a few months and then returned back to Dwarka, accompanied by Arjun and other Yadus. Just imagine the great fortune of the Pandavas. He went back to Dwarka, then he came back to Hastinapur just for a sacrifice, and he stayed for months. How fortunate the Pandavas, headed by Yudhishthira, were. They were getting the personal association of the Lord. And he was so kind to give it so generously. So we'll stop there. Madhusan Babu? Would you like to share your realizations?
Yeah, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Guru Maharaj ki jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good that, we can go through these other chapters, these 13, 10, 11, 12, yeah.
Up to 13.
Yeah, up to 13, but very nice account of what actually happened, isn't it? After Bhishma Dev is left, and then Yudhishthira has been installed as the king. He rightfully got the kingdom that he deserved, and obviously it was wrongfully taken away from them. And his cousins, like headed by Duryodhan, was trying to usurp the kingdom. And as a result, it made Pandavas suffer quite a lot like this. But the Lord wanted the rightful heir or rightful king or the ruler at the throne of Hastinapur. And that's why the whole battlefield, the Kurukshetra, the war took place. And the rule of Maharaj Yudhishthira at that time is quite amazing. And Prabhupada in his purport is quite heavy on some of the aspects of the modern civilization, which he more or less calls it like, the killing of animals. There's no proper leaders at all. They're all selfish, and nation against nation, people against people, just all divided and all that. And then killing of animals, and he just basically, the purport is quite heavy actually when Prabhupada, some of the things that he mentions, and the civilization is just like cats and hogs and dogs and hogs, and it's quite heavy and make you realize, you start to compare that, we compare Ram Rajya or the rule of Yudhishthira, and they are the devotees of the Lord, and they know how to rule correctly and make the citizens happy, and everything is very, very peaceful. And even the cows are very happy because they give milk profusely. And then earth has a mother nature, we call it mother, the earth. It's quite abundant and can give lots and lots of resources, provided it's utilized properly. But when you start to exploit, then even the earth can actually hide away some of the resources and make us feel there's a lack of certain things. But actually there isn't really a lack, but even Dharti Mata feels the burden of the sinful activities and improper rule that brings about. So, the killing of animals, Prabhupada really says, is there, as long as as long as there is animal killing going on, then mothers will also keep sending the children to the battlefields, wars, and we see that, because mothers are killing their own children within their wombs. There's no proper guidance on that. There's also no, if we're killing cows, particularly, cows are regarded as the mother of the society, and she gives milk. After we have, as babies, we stop taking the milk of the biological mother. The next is the milk of a cow, which is nutritious and gives us nutrition, and we grow and we can become strong and all that. So cow is another mother after. And to kill your own mother, and the mothers then have to kill their own children by sending them to the wars, and also killing them in the wombs. And then there are children, who are single parent. The society is just totally upside down, topsy-turvy. And the leaders, we lack proper leaders, and only leaders who are God conscious, because this is property of Krishna. Krishna's earth, and it's got to be ruled by Krishna's representative. So Prabhupada is quite heavy on those things. And then afterwards, Parikshit Maharaj also comes. There are some areas where Parikshit Maharaj is so powerful leader, then how come the rule didn't continue? But obviously there is a predicament, Maharaj Parikshit is going to do something, and it's the onset of Kali Yuga, and Kali has to come. So that will be the next step coming. But, Yudhishthira Maharaj was, certainly ruled the planet properly. And then also how Krishna, and actually when you ask a question about Krishna in Dwarka, he's got 16,000 old palaces. Each palace is Krishna is there in each palace doing different activities. How can he be so different? Is he the same Krishna that stands in front of Bhishma Dev when Bhishma Dev is leaving his body? Is the same Krishna that is in Vrindavan? But Prabhupada says in the purport that Krishna is like the sun. The sun, and it depends on our perspective. For Maharaj, for Bhishma Dev, his worshipable Lord was Parthasarathi. So that was in front of him, and he worships him as that. But it's the same Krishna that's in Vrindavan, and the gopis and all, they're all having a relationship with a coward boy. And then in Dwarka, it's the same Krishna. The Krishna is the same. Like the sun is the same, but there's no difference between sunshine and the sun. And it's our perspective. Somebody might see the sunset and see it differently and describe it differently. Some may be seeing it sun rising, and it'll be a different from sunset. And also the sun in the middle of the day will be different. But it depends on our positions, how we're seeing the sun. But the sun is still the same. It's still the same. So Krishna is still the same. It's the same Krishna in Dwarka, in Vrindavan. So it depends on how we are worshipping. Even the transcendentalists, Prabhupada mentions that, even Brahmajyoti to some is still Krishna, but it still doesn't, within the, some transcendentalists who may merge into the Brahmajyoti, you're still part of Krishna and Krishna's energy, but there's no relationship in that. There's no interaction. There's no any mellows being felt and all that. But to experience that needs bhakti, that needs another bow, and then you have to go to one of the 9 processes of bhakti. And then if you're in Vrindavan, then there's interaction with Krishna in a different way. So it's nice that, all these chapters are unfolding the story as we go along with Yudhishthira Maharaj, and then all the Pandavas also, how they will leave, and Krishna also unfolds, but that will come anyway. So I hope that kind of helps anyway. but it's nice to go through these chapters like this.
It is. It's useful. Anybody else? Any comments? Any questions?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
It is so wonderful. As in, before we started this Srimad Bhagavatam, I'd read it, but it was in the very short form, which my dad had, Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, okay.
But as we go through this, you want to go through each verse.
Yes.
And before, you used to think that let me just go to chapter 10, but or Canto 10. But that's not happening, because this one, each chapter, each verse is so much bringing you to what you have heard, and it's all being repeated.
Okay.
So you feel that this is all the truth being said by Srimad Bhagavatam in each verse. It is so enchanting. You don't want to leave it.
Oh, wow. That's actually the right mood, isn't it? That's the right mood. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And, just when we get past the first and second cantos, we come to the third canto. And third canto is very challenging. If we have the wrong mood, most devotees stop actually at the third canto, and they can't get past it.
They skip it.
Or they skip it. But if we see it in the light of your comments, then actually you will relish even the third canto. Even it may be challenging, but we will relish it because we know it's in relation to Krishna. So,
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Going back to Aswatthama. Can you hear? Can you, Prabhuji? Yes.
Yes.
It's like people can take away everything. They can take our money, our properties, and everything, but our knowledge they cannot take. So Aswatthama had his knowledge. As a Brahmin, he had his knowledge. That's why he could
the mantras,
So yes, do the mantras and summon this Brahmastra. That is one. And then when you were talking about Sadhu Sangha, right, being in the association of devotees, and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, 22.49, I think, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself quote, he said, Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Bhakta Shraddha Yadi Hoy. If we have the Shraddha in Krishna, right, Bhakti Phala Prema Hoya Samsara Jaya Shai. That means that by associating with a devotee, one awakens his faith in devotional service to the Lord, to Krishna. Because of devotional service, one domes love for Krishna awakens, and thus one material condition existence comes to an end. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also is emphasizing on this sadhu sangha, to be in the association.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
like for now, and he says, he goes further to say, even 1 minute, he said lava matra. He says sadhu sangha, sarva satya satyak hoy, lava matra sadhu sangha. 1 minute, like
half a moment.
14th of a minute. Yes.
Yeah, it's half a moment.
Yes. So you see, we still get the association. If we are in the association of devotees, we get a lot, which we are getting right now. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Devotee association is absolutely key, and we are very fortunate. Thank you, Indulekha Mataji. Yes, Ashwatthama is, see, the thing is, he's also going to be the next Vyas for the next Kali Yuga. So it just sort of, it's quite amazing. He's the situation he was in at the end of this Dwapara Yuga. And then when he comes as Vyas next, it's a different situation, different consciousness. So that's really interesting. I'd like to know more about that, but I haven't found anything yet. How he's going to change his consciousness. But anyway, interesting times.
But that Kali Yuga will be after
long time.
The new creation has been established by Brahma again.
Not a new creation, not even half a creation. It will just carry on, because from Kali Yuga, it'll go into Satya Yuga. There'll be a little transition. There's no
Yeah.
destructions of anything. There's no
Yeah, this is the
No.
cycle of the yugas, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
the cycle of the yuga. So he just goes into, but there's a little transition, but it's not a devastation in any way.
So he's alive all through.
He's alive all through.
All the other yugas. Wow. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. And what he had on his, the jewel, that power he obviously lost. That was, yeah, that was some, I can't remember now what powers that had, but anyway, doesn't matter too much. Okay, anybody else? Any questions? Is everybody able to keep up in terms of reading? I was quite gratified. I worked out that perhaps about 10 devotees, we are all reading together. And that's really phenomenal. That's amazing, actually. I'm really gratified by that, because if we're reading Bhagavatam and we're reading it together, that's very powerful. So if we're going too fast, do let us know. If we're going too slow, this is as fast as we can go. Okay, good. Otherwise, let's shift on to Nrsimha Kavach, yeah. Oh, Pratamba, you're there. Good. Yeah, you can do the Nrsimha Pralam later? Pralam prayers? Yeah, okay, good. We're celebrating his new camera.
Okay.